Port Harcourt. Port Elizabeth, South Africa versus Port Harcourt, Nigeria. Hello guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. If you're new to this channel, please don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so that you don't miss out on my next interesting African video like this. And to my returning subscribers, thank you so much for always coming back. I love you guys so much. On today's video, we'll be looking at two port cities in Africa, one in West Africa and one in Southern Africa. I'm talking about Port Elizabeth of South Africa and Port Harcourt of Nigeria. These are two beautiful African cities, and please, the aim of this video is not to look down on any city or to belittle any African city, but to appreciate how far African cities have come in terms of infrastructural development. So let's start with Port Elizabeth. Let's take a look at what Port Elizabeth looks like. So this is Port Elizabeth. It is the fifth or sixth largest city in South Africa, with a population of about 1.3 million to 1.5 million people. So it is a very important port city in South Africa, and it's one of the most naturally beautiful city in South Africa. So it sits along the Indian Ocean. As you can see, the Indian Ocean is always very blue compared to the Atlantic Ocean that's kind of dark in color. So the Indian Ocean is very blue, and you mostly find these white sand beaches in most of their shores. So that's where this is located along the Indian Ocean. I mean, this Port Elizabeth, and trust me, it's such a beautiful place. Any place that has a white beach plus a blue sea, that place is always beautiful. So when it comes in terms of GDP, Port Elizabeth has a GDP of about $15 billion, making it one of the richest cities in South Africa. So the main source of the economy is tourism, logistics, shipping, and retail stores. So you see, Port Elizabeth is it has a diversified economy. Yeah, they don't just depend on one sector. They have varieties of sectors that generate money into the city. So in terms of landmass, this city has a landmass of about 1,950 compared to Port Harcourt of Nigeria. That is, this place is about 5 times larger than Port Harcourt of Nigeria, and they have an international airport called Chief Darwin Stoneman International Airport. It is nicknamed the 10 minutes airport because it connects to other parts of South Africa in less than 10 minutes. It connects easily to places like Johannesburg, Cape Town, and Durban. So that's it. So it has a port, it has an international airport, and have a pretty good infrastructure. That's what defines a city. And I must say, this place is a very beautiful place. So when it comes to cost of living, compared to other South African cities, when it comes to cost of living, I would say Port Elizabeth is moderate compared to cities like Johannesburg or Cape Town. It's very moderate. So if you're a tourist planning to visit or settle in South Africa, you can choose Port Elizabeth because it is very affordable to live there. So also, when it comes to safety index, a lot of South African cities are high in crime, topping some of the most dangerous cities in Africa. But Port Elizabeth has a very low crime rate, so this place is safe. So they're even, according to some sources available online, they are rating the security of the place 6/10. That's not bad. A place to be 6/10, so it's not bad. It's above average, so that means the place is really safe. So it's a hot tourist destination in South Africa. It's also a center for business. If you want to do more, get more into logistics and shipping, you can settle in Port Elizabeth. So, but I from the view, I feel like they don't have a lot of structures like compared to places like neighboring cities like Johannesburg. You don't see a lot of structures. That means the place is still urbanized. Like just 1.3 million people living in a 1,950 square kilometers. So that's like they have vast land, but few people. Yeah, like imagine 1.3 million people living in 1,950 square kilometer land in a country of about 64 million population. So you see, you will not tend to see a lot of structures or a lot of people compared to places like Johannesburg. So let me bring Port Harcourt of Nigeria. Let's take a look at what Port Harcourt looks like. So that's enough for Port Elizabeth. So let me bring up Port Harcourt. So this is Port Harcourt. Port Harcourt is the capital and largest city of Rivers State. It is Nigeria's fifth or sixth largest city by population. It has is a hub for oil and gas in Nigeria. It's located in the south-south geopolitical zone of Nigeria, and like I said, it is a hub for oil and gas where you find most oil giants like Shell, Mobil, Total. So you see, the Port Harcourt is more into oil and gas activities, and also they are more into business, and they're also more into political activities because the seat of government is also located in this city where the governor lives. So you see, Port Harcourt is more into politics, business, industrialization, and there's a lot of industrialization going on here in Port Harcourt. Compared to Port Elizabeth with a population of just 1.3 million, Port Harcourt has a population of over 6 million, making it like the fifth or sixth largest city in Nigeria, and also one of the largest in West Africa. And when it comes in terms of economy, Port Harcourt has a booming economy than Port Elizabeth. Port Harcourt has an economy of about 30 to 35 billion dollars. That's like two times the economy of Port Elizabeth. Yeah. So when it comes to infrastructural development, I would say Port Harcourt is still growing in terms of infrastructural development, and is meeting up to international standards. So this is what Port Harcourt looks like. So from the view, you're going to see that Port Harcourt is a very big city. It's well urbanized, and not like, I would not say Port Elizabeth is not urbanized, because Port Elizabeth, it has a very vast landmass. So Port Harcourt only has a landmass of about 390, or yeah, about also 390. So that's like very small. You need to have like four of Port Harcourt to have one of Port Elizabeth. So Port Elizabeth is very big compared to Port Harcourt. Another thing I've noticed in Port Harcourt is that Port Harcourt has a very pretty good road network. Like they have a lot of flyovers. This is something you will not find in Port Elizabeth of South Africa. Like you see very beautiful long stretch of road. Yeah. Another thing you have noticed between these two cities is that Port Elizabeth has more modern architectures. Yeah, like they look so modern, look so advanced. Unlike in Port Harcourt, where you see just the normal typical African architecture, so they don't have this massive architecture that you see in Port Elizabeth. Another thing I say Port Harcourt has over Port Elizabeth is that Port Harcourt is booming in real estate. I don't think like there's so much real estate going on in Port Elizabeth, because I mean the population is not much. So Port Harcourt has a larger population and also needs a larger uh, residential area. So that's why a lot of residential area or estate is popping up every day in Port Harcourt than Port Elizabeth. So like I said, Port Harcourt is a port city. They also have a port, and in as much as the fact that it's a coastal city, Port Harcourt does not have a beach. Yeah, it does not have a beach, so you can only locate beach in neighboring towns or towns that are nearby, but not in the city itself. Also, Port Harcourt has an international airport. It also has a railway system, as you can see there. That's the Port Harcourt to Aba railway. So the airport in Port Harcourt is called Port Harcourt International Airport. From there, you take flight to all other countries, especially African countries, or you take domestic flight to other parts of Nigeria. So when you've seen the road network in Abuja, like the road network is massive. You will not find, like, look at that view. Like, I so much love Port Harcourt. Like, Port Harcourt is so green. It's, in fact, it's greener than Port Elizabeth, in as much of the fact that like it has a lot of structure. You know, the more you build, the lesser green you see, because those places that are green, you are going to construct on them, so you will not see a lot of green. But I'm really happy that Port Harcourt has been able to maintain that level of greenness. So when it comes to city organization, I would say Port Elizabeth is very organized compared to Port Harcourt. Like, Port Harcourt looks so um like look kind of chaotic, it looks kind of disorganized. Let me say, like, it's the Lagos of South Nigeria. And also, when it comes in terms of safety index, compared to Port Elizabeth, Port Harcourt is way more safer. Like most Nigerian cities, they are very safe than most South African cities according to crime index. So Port Harcourt has a very low crime rate compared to Port Elizabeth. So Port Harcourt is rated like 8, no, not 8, that's too much. Let me say 7/10, while Port Elizabeth is rated like 6/10. So you see, Port Harcourt is safer to live than Port Elizabeth. And Port Harcourt is also home to some of the most beautiful residential estates in West Africa, like the Rainbow Estate. So this one is here is called the Taft City. You know what? For most West African, Taft City is a city that's constructed by Gambian in most West African city to settle the issue of housing in West Africa. So that's it for Port Harcourt. Let me know in the comment section, what do you think about these two beautiful African cities, Port Harcourt of Nigeria or Port Elizabeth of South Africa? Let me know what you think in the comment section. Note, these cities, they are both fifth or sixth largest city in their respective country, and I think this is a very fair comparison, bringing them together. So we are not doing this to look down on any African city. We are doing this to appreciate how far African cities have come in terms of infrastructural development. So let me know what you think about these two African cities in the comment section. And please, if you've watched to the end and you haven't subscribed, just subscribe and turn on the notification bell. Thank you so much.